All right. Well, good morning. So this presentation was on the evaluation of phytocare, water treatment for treating broilers at processing age for salmonella. So salmonella is a leading cause of foodborne illness in the United States, and so integrators use a variety of strategies for mitigation of salmonella. So one of the major methods of mitigation is treatment of the water right before processing. And so that's really the focus of the current study. We had a challenge control, a group that received phytocare at 18 ounces per 128 gallons for 6 days, and that same inclusion in the water for 3 days leading up to processing. So at placement, the birds were 42 days of age. So day zero, the birds were 42 days, and the uh, the study proceeded for the next 7 days. So the birds were 49 days at termination. Each treatment was represented by 3 replicates of 8 male Ross broiler chickens, and the birds were placed on fresh pine shavings. We challenged those birds in the litter or the shavings themselves. So we gave 100 milliliters of 1 times 10 to the 8 colony forming unit (CFU) per mil of Salmonella enteritidis. Then we evaluated boot socks on day 1 and day 7 to assess the challenge. And on day 49, termination, we collected 3 birds per pen and took ceca samples as well as crop samples for both prevalence and enumeration of salmonella. The major outcomes are reported here at the bottom in the tables. So we'll start with the boot sock outcomes. So on day 1, you can see relatively similar challenge levels as far as we're looking at most probable number or similar to CFU. Uh, so this would be log transform data. So that 3 in this slot would be 10 to the 3. So fairly good challenge on day 1. And you can see by day 7, we still had a pretty good environmental challenge. I do want to point out, as far as the boot socks, while we don't see any significant differences between treatments, you can see that the challenge level maintained its level of salmonella over time versus the 2 phytocare units decreased about a log over that same time span, which is kind of interesting. The next category that we're going to talk about is the salmonella. So we had 3 replicates and we took 3 samples. So that's in reference to the 9 samples there. In this case, we're looking at numbers. So again, MPN per gram, and this would be log transform numbers. So 2.5 written there would be 10 to the 2.5. So while again, we didn't have a significant difference, p-value of 0.14, we had approximately a 2 log reduction in both of the treatment groups relative to the challenge control, which is fairly substantial. In the context of this study, it would have likely been significant if there were more replicates. Really, what's driving the p-value here is going to be replication. So, so really good outcomes on the ceca. And then the last measurement that we had was the crop. And in this case, we're looking at the Tobit regression. And so there's really 2 primary ways to measure salmonella outcomes. We can either look at prevalence, so the percentage of the population that's positive, or we can look at numbers. The problem is we can't evaluate 0 numbers. It just doesn't work in the statistical design. And so we really, if we're looking at numbers, we're looking at numbers of the positive birds, which skews the data slightly in that direction. So in the positive direction. So what we do with the Tobit regression is we incorporate those negative values into the enumeration calculation. And the way that we do that, we know that culture methods aren't perfect. There's going to be some bacteria that are still there, but they're not culturable. So we call that like the limit of detection. So what we do is we set a limit of detection threshold, and we assign that limit of detection to all of the negative values. So instead of being negative, they might be, 10 to the 1. And in that evaluation, we saw a significant reduction in the salmonella numbers in the birds that received the phytocare for 6 days relative to the challenge control, with that group that received the same product at 3 days being statistically intermediate. Again, very strong evidence of product efficacy given the current model and design. So with that, thank you so much.